Today's conversation is on the startup growth and how you could explore the GCC ecosystem for global opportunities. Again, how many of you know the full form of GCC? Okay. I think we will start from the speakers themselves as to when they introduce themselves, what GCC means. Definitely because from this part of the world, GCC could also mean Gulf countries as well. So that's not the GCC that we are talking about. Anything AED doesn't work in this particular session. It probably is in some other session right now. Okay, just to give a brief way that we would structure this conversation, around about 40-45 minutes, we will have share our speakers share some insights into how the journey startups and GCCs collaborate, and then the last 10 to 15 minutes we will open up the floor for you all to ask questions. And without any further ado, let me introduce the speakers. So we have Biju on my right. So he represents Broadridge, as you know. Sunil from Wonderland. Of course, they would talk about it. So this is fintech and wealth management, logistics. And then we have Sunil Podar. He is from the consumer segment, but he has been in pretty much every industry. If at all I have to invest on any mutual fund, I will ask him because he knows every industry. And we have, Sandeep, who was also my, panelist yesterday. So we know a lot about each other. He is from the telco industry. So we have like good eclectic, speakers here. Right, as a first round, speakers, thank you so much for being here. Would love to get your introduction. Of course, inspire the audience with your, the career progress and all, and also tell us about your company, and then generally, where is the company headed towards. Over to you, Sandeep, if I can pick your brain first.
Thank you, Saravana. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandeep Prakash. I run the India Center for Proximus Group. Okay, Proximus may not be a easy to recollect name for all of you, or not heard before. We're a national telecom provider in Belgium, publicly listed, state-owned. We operate in the region of Benelux, which is a short form for Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. In India, specifically, we have a few different entities and lines of business. The line of business that I run is solely GCC. So our engineering and technology development centers. Meanwhile, our entry into India has been quite interesting. It happened via 2 acquisitions in the last 5 years. The first acquisition about 4.5 years ago, when the group made, is when they brought me on board to manage that acquired business. And as we evolved, and in the late last year, this business case, when it came onto the table, I was asked to manage the GCC elements of it. So I wouldn't call myself too long ridden horse on the GCC track, at least. I have a lot of background among a lot of few folks, startup world. First half of my career, I helped Indian companies set up and run their European as well as American operations, and probably notable among them when I was with them was still a startup. Now is recently IPO'd company as well, Capillary Technologies. And then the second half of my career, I've been doing the reverse of that. A couple of stints, I helped American companies set up and run their India operations. And that was not just technology or engineering centers, but also commercial operations in India, where we had customers, sales going on. So that's a bit of a background and introduction to myself.
Thank you so much. Before I hand over Sandeep to introduce, Sandeep's wedding anniversary was yesterday, and his wife is also here. So can we all give a round of applause? So their business, pleasure, everything happened. So he yesterday won the Best Husband of the Year award as well. So Sandeep, now on the LinkedIn version of your journey and your company, please.
My gosh, I think, I've got a little bit of pressure to just kind of speak in front of my wife. But look, I think, I heard something when I think Sarvana was asking that some of you raised few hands about what GCC is. And we're talking about the subject, So if you can just raise a hand, are you all aware about what GCC is once again? Anybody in the back, do you know about GCC or should I really give a little bit of reflection?
Please do, please do. There is a myth, there is a lot of confusion about what GCC means. Please do.
Sure. Of course, I think she was quite kind to give a little bit of background about my career journey. Spent 25 years building GCC for many Fortune 500 companies, leveraging India ecosystem, leveraging India talent, creating value for the enterprise, and genuinely quite excited to see how GCC has evolved over the last 20, 25 years. Right now, I'm setting up the GCC for a company called Kimberly-Clark, which is more famous for a brand called Huggies that typically is more consumer oriented. And of course, we've got 40, 50 more brands across the globe. We are setting up in Pune. We've got first few of our folks in the building now. But coming back on just to kind of say why we chose India and what is GCC, global enterprises having operations in multiple countries are centralizing their operations to leverage scale, technology, and strategy and talent. And if I look at a company like ours, we have a shared services center in Poland, in Argentina, in Malaysia, and of course, small centers in US. But these are all regional centers supporting each of those regions, countries, languages, and time zone. When we talk about a global capability center, it is largely to support global countries, language agnostic, time zone agnostic, and function agnostic. So I think that's where the discussion today is about how can startups work to go global and work with the GCCs. Sorry for my few cents. Huh?
No, amazing. That's needed. If I could just add some more, the companies like Infosys, Cognizant, they are based, even in Thiruvananthapuram, right? So they are serving clients across the world. They don't serve only their headquarters or their own companies. GCCs are the employees who are seated here serving their parent organizations. That's the primary essence of GCC in addition to what Sandeep said. Sunil, over to you. Take us to the Wonderland.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure you would have not heard about Wonderland, but then you would have definitely heard about Toyota. So I represent Toyota here. And we have, and like Sandeep very well orchestrated, my memories came to life, about GCC. GCC basically stands for Global Capability Centers, right? And you would have heard of shared service centers, right? Having shared service centers in India is like now if there is a Fortune 500 company or even a multinational company, and if they don't have a global capability center in India, then in the corporate world they are missing something really big. Yeah, so that's the importance these three alphabets have gained over the years. So, and the good part is we as India, or even if you talk about Kerala, yeah, we are part of the solution to this global movement that is happening right now. Bringing a little bit of local touch to this discussion, I would like to also share, although my name is Sunil Modi, I do not come from Gujarat. I basically come from a small village in Cochin called Chotanikera, if you've heard of it. How many of you have heard of Chotanikera in this group? Wow. That's great. So I'm part of you guys. I did my nursery in Chotanikera, and that's why Kerala is very close to my heart. Yeah, every time and after nursery, I went to Rajasthan. I did my education and everything. Most of my career, I was abroad in Kuwait, in Jordan, Bahrain, Copenhagen, Philippines. So I've been in multiple countries in the world, but I still have a great affection and place for Kerala, and more specifically Chotanikera. So I was just sharing with Bijuraj just now that I still have that heart connect with this land. Yeah. So I'm sure we are going to have some interesting interactions and conversations. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. I didn't know this actually. I thought you were pulling someone's leg just now. That you were like there is a Kerala element in you.
No, no, no. Definitely, I think even in the roundtable I shared about it, and I think even in the previous one when we had with Pinanai Vijayan, we talked about it. A small glimpse about what Toyota as such we do. I would like to also touch upon that. We do airport automation, right? Airport automation in the sense baggage handling, conveyor belts, passenger checkpoints. So there is 95% of chance that if you are flying by air, we are managing your baggages and your passenger checkpoints, yeah? So then we are connected again a little bit more here. We also do warehousing for Amazons and the Walmarts. So if you are ordering something through Amazon, remember that we are involved, right? Again, the last one but not the least, if you have any courier stuff that is coming from anywhere in the world, DHLs, FedEx, and UPS, and all these guys, we do their parcel sorting. So in small words, if I have to say, we do more than 1 million parcel sorting in a day. Yeah, so that's the volume that we manage globally. Thank you.
Wow, that's really a lot of wonderland. Would love to pick some thoughts on it. Biju, before your name just gives away. You are part of this part of the world, of course, right? A quick intro about you as well as your organization, please.
If Piju didn't give it away, Payoli should definitely have given it away. So I do have my roots to this state. Did my college here. But I'm currently based in Bangalore. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Broadridge, and I also have another role of Head of Strategy. Broadridge is, unlike most of my other panelists, we are actually a tech company. We're a fintech company where most US banks, we're a US fintech company. Most US banks, and when I say US banks, I'm talking not retail banking, but investment banks, the JP Morgans, the Wells Fargos, the State Streets, the cities of the world, they run on our technology when it comes to the settlements of their, so wealth tech, funds, capital markets, that's the space where we operate. So I have two roles. I actually look after the India operations from a COO perspective. We've been in this country for quite some time. We've been in this country for about 30 years actually, or 26 years to be precise. Our presence is in Bangalore, Hyderabad and Mumbai. We've also grown through acquisitions. We've had acquisitions all the way. So looking after about 6,000 employees and what we deliver from India is one part of the strategy. One part of the CEO role, but the strategy role, which is I think more relevant for this conversation, has two angles which could be relevant for the conversation here. I'm accountable for what Broadridge does for markets we don't operate, and we don't operate currently, let's say in market like India, as well as markets that look and feel like India. And the other thing is I'm also accountable for looking at latest technology interventions and trying to see how we actually take it into our product stack. So that's quickly about me.
Amazing, amazing. All right, let's now engage them. We have shared our LinkedIn profiles, and any prospective executive search firms are all looking at you right now already, right? Okay, why work with startups? GCCs have all the money. In fact, they think in terms of dollars, euros, everything. So it's nothing about money. Why engage with startups, and is there any method in engaging with startups, any frameworks, any charter that you have? Let's do a quick round of conversation. Maybe Sunil, starting with you, you have the mic and you are right beside me. Right? Please tell us your tryst working with startups.
So why startups, right? And I think it's also the topic of our session is also supercharging startup growth, and then also leveraging GCC ecosystems. I think when GCC is the buzzword, right? And that is what is in the market. Everybody is talking about it. And this is a time when even the government is so keenly interested in calling us all and sitting down and having a dialogue with us. I think the need of the hour is GCCs. But where startup ecosystems or startup ventures come into picture is the strengths and the weaknesses that we need to acknowledge and identify. What do we lack as GCCs, and what do you have as startups is the discussion point in my view. Yeah. So if I look at it, I see startups are more, they have a better appetite for risk. Yeah, they are very open to do new stuff, fail fast, learn from it, right? When it comes to GCCs, we come with a lot of baggage of, doing the alignments and getting the test case and doing the pilots and then, investigating. And there's a round and round of, whether you call it bureaucratic or you call it a tedious process of validating a use case or a success story. But when it comes to startups, you have that free hand, trying different, experimenting different, and getting into some logical or tangible MVPs that really work in some small use case. And with that, you come up with a proposition. But we were having also a small discussion around our very close table, and we were trying to understand, that is that enough, right? And that's where we come together and on one platform and come together and have that dialogue and understand how can we create that cohesive platform where startups can come together and we also partner with each other, understanding each other's weaknesses and strengths and move forward. Yeah. Different companies can have different approaches. But as Toyota, what we are doing, or as Wonderlander, what we are doing today, globally, we are really having that dialogue with startups, doing hackathons with them, which creates a good atmosphere to even fail, right? It's okay if we have a use case and you have that niche skill to really deliver something on that use case, then we can come together, understand the process, and try to build something together. Yeah, it's co-creating environment where you also get the resources around it, yeah, to work on different examples, different trial and error methods. In that way, we can come together and work it out. Something that we can offer to you is a broader landscape of processes, geographies, and different industries, right? So in that way, if you are talking about Toyota itself, there is automobiles, there are logistics, there's airport domain. So these are different domains where you get diverse atmospheres where you can create and experiment your niche skills. Yeah, so that's what I would like to bring to the table.
Amazing, amazing. I could just think of an analogy. While Toyota or large GCCs are like these large ships which give stability, which can really move, huge containers or people or something. The startups are those speedboats which can just maneuver, right? Amazing, amazing.
In fact, you're talking about analogy, it's post-lunch session, and yesterday we were talking about the food in Kerala. I think enterprises and GCCs are like, the real sadhya, very spread out, different options. And then I think startups are more like, the appam, quick, sharp, make and eat and fill your stomach. So it's like...
Lovely, lovely. I think such a, right thing. Sandeep, over to you. Please, your flavor of the same, how do you engage with startups? How do you see startups? Do you see them as this more at a mindset or at those surgical solutions, 12 number ka spanner? Is that how you see that? Please tell us your charter.
I think it's a little difficult to kind of put together thought, but what I've seen so far is that if you look at the GCC world today, we do close to $65 billion of revenues a year, and even if we can take out 2% towards startups, not because of anything else, but because we can have a collaboration and solve problems for us, which typically we take a little more time. And I think especially with the advent of technology, a lot of new ideas emerge and we're able to really automate those processes. So for me, I think I see an opportunity of a win-win between the collaboration of startups and GCCs. The second one, GCCs typically also are very important because they need to be relevant. Of course, most of the GCCs are set up because we are able to do role, a function, a work stream in India or other part of the world at a cheaper cost. And I don't want to kind of take away that story. Cost is a very important part of those elements. But then that's for year one and year two. How do you be relevant? How do you adopt technology? How do you create value? And that's where we need new ideas, new technologies, and new stuff that typically startups bring in, right? You talked about speed, agility, bringing those ideas and creating some kind of, problems that we can solve quickly. Of course, it needs to be very precise. And I can give an example about something that I did. I used to also engage with NASCOM and discuss with a lot of startups in terms of what they can solve for. There was one particular challenge we had in finance was duplicate payments. And as you may all imagine, we of course have got very robust controls, but then sometimes we end up making duplicate payments to the vendor, and we wanted to kind of solve that problem. So we worked with a provider, we worked with a startup, and they were really able to create a solution where they can identify potential duplicates. And that really solved a lot of problem for us. More than that, they had an AI engine, and that AI engine was really able to look at all the invoices that has been done in the past many years, and then look at the recoveries that they can make from the vendors based on the invoices. So not only we were able to really solve the problem of duplicate payments, but get together a solution that can create a much more robust controls around all the invoices and the procurement process. So you're right. I think sometimes we work with startups to solve a unique problem, but there are opportunities across sectors, functions, geographies in terms of what is most important and relevant for them.
Amazing, amazing. Sandeep, the lovely points. I have some more thoughts and questions on that. By the way, how many of you have seen the Kimberly-Clark brand in this event? Oh, looks like not many of you are using the washroom, right? Please go see there. You will see the Kimberly-Clark brand actually. Meanwhile, okay, Sandeep, I have of course, the same question, but also I want to understand this flavor. Telco as a space, there are hardly winners take all, top 2 or 3. If I were a telco-based startup, I have only 3. And if I were a bad startup, the word spreads actually. It's too risky to be a telco startup. Is that what it is? And along with answering the charter, if you could answer this as well.
Sure. Which is the third one that you're referring to? I don't know.
Wonderful, wonderful.
But yeah, I'll start with the original part of it, which is why, bear with me, I'm going to break it down word by word, why GCCs buy from startup, right? Like, let me break down the two parties involved, GCC or startup. If you observed, even in my introduction, I didn't define GCC because internally, let me tell you, I cringe every time internally, okay? Every time somebody calls me a GCC, okay? I correct them. It doesn't matter whether he's the CEO of the company as well. I correct them because, yeah, we are headquartered in Belgium. That's where the origins are. So that is Proximus Belgium. And we are Proximus India. Proximus Belgium is a telecom company. Proximus India is a technology company. That's how we look at it, okay? So the reason I'm differentiating that is, if we buy, we're buying as Proximus. And that includes India, includes Belgium. So there will be different stakeholders at different points, okay? I'll pause there and move on to the other part, which is the startups. Again, apart from registration with DPIIT or whatever, there is no other definition of startups, right? Like, when do you stop becoming a startup and become an enterprise? When are you a shop versus a startup? There is no definition of that, right? You solve a problem, so you're a service provider or a product, company. If it fits my problem, I buy from you. And problem is to be defined as well, because in setups like ours, which is a multi-region, cross-cultural, large, operational sizes, as all of us kind of represent, problem is not just about, I am not able to ring fence the security around the Chat GPT application. It's not just that. It needs to sit with 100 other things, right? Which may not be defined in a normal rule book. So that's where, you defined GCC, the two parties, you define the problem, and then come to buy, right? Buy in itself is a big question, build versus buy. Why did we set up Proximus India? Because we wanted to build ourselves, right? Earlier, there were hundreds and thousands of people from Infosys, TCS, Accenture, Wipro, everybody. When I go to my Brussels office, the Diwali party there is bigger than the Christmas party, largely because of all the service provider, right? So we used to, get things built. So we used to buy from them, and now we realize that doesn't matter we're a telco, logistics, consumer company, and Biju takes away the cake being a technology company as such. But all of us also are equally technology companies in many ways, at least the India elements of it, many parts, right? So becoming, what used to be contextual, what used to be peripheral, technology and software, moved more and more close to core. And what do? You own the core. You don't outsource the core. You own the core, you outsource the contextual. So we owned the core and said, we will build our software in Proximus India. That doesn't mean that contextual has gone away. There are other things becomes contextual. India workforces can be large. That has its own challenges. I don't want to build a software which is HR facing. I don't want to, just because I'm a telecom company, can do things like putting in a SIM in a biometric and sending data. I don't want to build in a biometric system to measure my people's access and all of that. Those are all contextual things for me, okay, here. So that's how we define when do we buy versus when do we build as well. So if you are startups and you're looking at selling to me or any of the panels over here, you need to understand what is core for us and thus we would like to own and may not be open for a conversation, what is contextual and thus are willing to partner, buy and all of that. So that's how you kind of need to break everything down before you approach any large enterprise.
Amazing. No, very beautifully put. So in a retail setup, I'm from the retail world, anything POS, ERP, so those are something that is held close to the enterprises, something that can work, which are like little peripheral innovation, so to say. But also I think, as you said, it also has to integrate with the core. Right? What are you building? Is it integrating with the core? Amazingly put. In fact, Biju, I have two lenses of asking the same question to you. One is wealth tech. I think broadly, if I can put fintech, majority of the Indian unicorn startups, at least whatever were unicorns then, most are fintech. So there seems to be still a lot of glamour element into it. Wealth tech startups are getting good round of funding. So how does the wealth tech ecosystem look like? Second one, because you're also providing tech to those wealth tech firms. So one way is a startup becoming a customer to, say, Kimberly-Clark. The other one is you taking them along the journey to your eventual customer. So how does that contour look like?
Okay, very interesting question. So I can be very clear on what we look for in startups. One of the problems I'm grappling with is, how do you enter markets where we don't exist, right? We could take our US products and actually superimpose on a new market, let's say like India. Will it really work? I mean, is it built for the scale? Is it built at the cost point? Is it built for the complexities that we bring in? Or do we look at inorganic, right? So if there are startups, or why startups, if there are larger companies as well, which have actually solved the problem for India or a market like India, have real customers, have sufficient marketplace, are profitable, and in the space where we operate, in the markets where we operate, please speak to us. What is the partnership? We'll figure out. Whether it's a partnership, whether it's an out-and-out strategic investment, outright acquisition, talent, collaboration, that's a different conversation. So that's one. Second, if you're sitting on very high tech, when I say very high tech, I'm not talking of agentic AI and things like that. I'm saying if you hold IPs on some things, which you think you're a very good technologist and you don't know how to take it to the rest of the world. But again, we will not be going and taking an edtech company elsewhere. But if you're an investment banking solution provider, you actually are solving something using blockchain or AI or something really where you hold some unique IP, but you don't know how to take it to the world. again come speak to us. I mean, I've got Malik here who's a VP for strategy. I mean, we are actually even open to actually giving our contacts, come speak to us, because we could look at where it comes out to. And on BFSI, 50% of the GCCs in India are BFSI. So BFSI, we actually even have a consortium of BFSI in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, etc. And about 80 odd startups have been acquired by BFSI's companies. So payments being the big thing, but payments is not everything, right? So we don't operate, let's say, in payments. That's core banking. But when it comes to capital markets, wealth, when it comes to, I mean, there are different ways to solve the same problem. And if a solution works for a market size of $1.5 billion, then it'll definitely work for solutions smaller than that, right? So,
Amazing, amazing. Now, there's a lot of contour. There is a very young startup shouting for funding, as we all can hear, right? So hopefully it gets funded, at least the seed round right now. Right? So the round robin as a conversation, we will probably park it. Let's build on this conversation. Any one of you, if you could tell what startups can benefit engaging in your organizations or in general also. What I mean to specifically get towards is it just you as a customer, or is it mentoring, or is there any possibility for any potential acquisition? Of course, Biju was telling we are open for everything. All you have to do, ensure is you are like one of your kind and come, let's have a conversation. That's one way of looking at it. But it is also a little taxing for a large enterprise to invite everyone. So what can startups expect from a typical engagement, either in your organization or otherwise? Key benefits to startups, to why should they work with GCCs?
Yeah, maybe I'll go first. I'll break it down in two parts. And it's very easy to sit here and say everything that Saravana said, right? But I can also equally tell you that, for very few of the evolved, India centers, I think Broadridge probably could be one example of that. Been here for a couple of decades and more. That's when these things also are fully defined, or fairly defined, I should say. Fully is never complete. I can tell you, for us, we entered the market as GCCs beginning of this year, literally. Okay, so in many ways, we're trying to tread that line between, in terms of size, just Proximus India is probably similar size as a startup. I mean, we are 200 people, but okay, again, there is no boundary to call one or the other, right? So we make these decisions as we go along the way. So there are companies, partners with us who are engaged throughout this journey. They're able to capture our value chain as we go along as well. So, and it's also a supply and a demand thing, right? So if I am engaging with 100 startups, it's an incubation cell or an outreach center in itself. And I can tell you, for early stage, India centers, no, that doesn't exist within, India. People like me who, just because we have a title which people think is fancy, ask us to engage there. But if it is very quick and easy to say no, but to get a yes out of us, it'll probably take a long time. Okay, because we're evaluating you while we're not speaking to you as well. And we may not be able to speak to you at all times, but it's there. Okay, and then there are different ways to engage as well. Not everything needs to be a pitch to sell or buy. It can be, there could be personal space, mentoring, and board and all of that. But even on a business stage, it needs to make sense for both the parties. But I can tell you, like for a company of who are in telco, because we don't have operations over here, if we make money, that we make out of giving people mobile, connections, giving people fiber connections to their home, giving people their TV, connections. So what comes along with that? tower technologies, tower and network technologies, the security around that, satellite comms. We've obviously crossed the 4G, 5G, but are we looking ahead? Are there technologies that, working on 6G, 7Gs, and what entails that? And you have to remember, each one moving off bands is a big transformation within the telecom industry. So these are some areas we will always be looking at. But in all of this, buyer is not just what we are referring to here as GCC, because GCC is not selling mobile network. It is my, call it whatever, grandfather, cousin, brother in Belgium who's selling this, right? So these are some technologies that are closer to our revenue centers, and thus we would be looking at. But at the same point of time, selling is not always to us. Selling sometimes could be to our partners. Selling sometimes could be to our customers. So it's a joint, exercise to go about. Within our world, people, right? Like, India centers and India engineering centers without a commercial operations over here is about people. So I'm sure there are, HR companies, service providers, and all of that. While we evaluate them, it also has to come with everything. The problem, as I defined earlier, needs to be not just I need to ramp up to 100 people in 6 months. Can you do that to me? Those 100 people need to go through my interviews. Those 100 people need to go through, our requirements based on, like I can tell you, comparison sometimes of engineering is, I think some of you said Poland, centers, etc., right? Like Eastern Europe and India is being compared now, not anymore on the cost basis. If you want cost, you compare it with Vietnam or Indonesia, on just the quality. A 10-year experienced engineer in Poland versus a 10-year experienced engineer out of India. That's the kind of comparisons that we look at as well. So there are service providers, that's also open, but meeting the quality standards that we would really like to be applicable across the board. So in many ways, India centers are startups with all the regulatory limitations and spider webs tying us together, which is a good thing. Sometimes slowness is a good thing to evaluate better, and that's how we are going to go about. So if you want to even learn about that aspect of how to build the right regulatory compliance and a stable growth structure to your own business, etc., more than happy to share, what our learnings have been.
Amazing. A lot of nuances in it. Yeah, Sandeep, your thoughts, please.
No, just a quick reflection on what you said, that why should startups engage with GCC, right? And I think one reflection I can think of is that if I look at the last decade or so, technology and operations have kind of merged, and GCCs have become the engine for transformation globally, including India as well. So when that happens, I think slowly the decision rights, the budgets, the opportunity to really kind of take a call on behalf of the organization also is moving with the GCCs and GBS. And when that happens, I think you get a little bit of prowess, you get a little bit of finesse. And if you have, for example, not just in India, but if you just look at India, when an industry has $65 billion of revenue, I'm sure when the budgets are there, you have a great opportunity to engage with GCCs and sell your product, services, and whatnot, right? So I think that's one reason why. And two, of course, there are many other ways to kind of look at. If I look at Indian conglomerates like, Adani's or Tata's or Reliance, I'm sure there's a very different engagement model. It's India for India, and of course, a little bit of expansion beyond India as well. But if we're looking at a global reach, I think from India, then I think GCCs can be a part of that engine.
Oh, that's amazing, right? India for India and India for the world. GCCs could be your conduit into that, and huge opportunity. Probably I was just thinking about some of the stats actually. I'll just quickly throw you around. GCCs are not an new phenomenon. They are not like a sideshow. There are 1,700 plus GCCs in India as we speak. The overall IT workforce is 6 million or so, out of which 1.9 million is GCCs. So they are here, and especially if you're thinking global, You get to meet a fellow Indian here who will probably mentor you, as Sandeep was talking about, who will tell you how to navigate, right? You cannot directly go to Poland, right? You can as well go through Adar's Palm Retreat where Sandeep stays, and from there you can go to Poland. That's an easier route, right? Any other thoughts? Why should, Biju, you have a thought? Yes, please.
Just one, I mean, for Broadridge, who's our customer? Our predominant customers are US fintech investment bankers. And do you know how many employees actually sit in the GCCs in India? You take JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, State Street, Citi, HSBC, and the number goes into lakhs. So what we figured out that our US salespeople are actually trying to sell solutions to people who sit out of Bangalore. And now we actually have an account management team that sits in India because it's not just end users, but actually with size, like Sandeep said, there are decision makers, there are influencers sitting here. And why is a US person working in his night talking to a person sitting in India where you've got a sizable presence here? So if it works for a company which is of a $7 billion, it definitely should work for a startup as well. So how do you engage and how do you leverage? But then the pitch should not be cost alone. Pitch should be something better than cost, and do not approach only to do experiments because, I mean, the larger companies are slower. I mean, whether you have the resilience to actually be able to handle that is something that you really need to think through. Yeah, that's
Lovely point. Before we get here, so there was this phrase, are you as a startup, please reflect, are you built for pilot or are you built for scale? At an enterprise level, a question to think about yourself. Yes, sir.
Maybe a small reflection to what Sandeep and also Bijuraj has mentioned. You specifically talked about experimental, and I think we need to acknowledge our strengths, number one. As startups, quality is paramount, right? And then if you are envisioning yourself to be, joining hands with a multinational, with a company or enterprise of relevance, then quality is key. One important aspect that you need to always remember is one of the strengths that you as startups hold is speed, right? The velocity, the speed. But and then on the other hand, of the other side of the coin, GCC's hold is scale, right? And when we have a leader or a leadership team of an enterprise or a GCC, then comes the intent, yeah, to collaborate. And when these three things intersect, then what you develop out of it is not experimental, but exponential. And that's what we need to achieve together. And if we have that ambition, and if you drive with quality and build something that stands out, yeah, then you have high possibility that you don't have to sit down and present yourself time and again and then pitch and the pitch decks and everything, but then you really stand out. Yeah, and that's where quality comes into picture. So I think let's work for the exponential and not just experimental and trial and error. I think that's where I think startups need to foundationally think about quality and build something that is more sustainable and stands tall in this world of innovation. Yeah.
Lovely. I love this catch phrase. Don't just think experimental, but through GCCs, you can definitely think exponential. Love it. Let's probably open the floor for questions from the audience. I mean, you can be very practical as well. How do we, specifically approach GCCs and stuff like that? It need not be clash of the, jargons and stuff. Over to the audience, please. Okay.
Thank you for a very engaging session. Am I audible?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for a very engaging session on GCCs. I'm sure most of your GCCs must be running as cost centers and not as revenue earning centers. So how do you balance this mindset of your employees that they're not client facing, they are not contributing to the business directly, and they get into a sort of a passive partnership mode? How do you bring back that aggressive edge in your teams?
I think this is a very GCC question, not as much as in terms of the GCC startup ecosystem, but I'll tell you, especially coming from a place where sometimes we do not have a very good factories or physical presence to business, and how do you really encourage your colleagues to be a part of the business, to be a part of the shareholder value creation. And we did something unique in one of the roles, right? We started a campaign and we said that you make a difference. And this was probably done in a way where we said, what's the end goal? The end goal is to create shareholder value. And we said, if I'm processing an invoice, if I'm posting a manual journal entry, how do I make a difference? So if I make an invoice payment on time, I make the vendor happy. The vendor is able to give me a discount. The vendor is really give me a better quality of products. And that really increases our margins, and that really creates more shareholder value. So across each function, what we used to do, we used to really create this business impact and make sure that we are able to tell them, hey, you are connected as much, not like as passive as you are, but you are really creating a value for the organization. Was this something that you were thinking of? Was this?
This is actually a shared service.
Yes.
But even in the core engineering global capability center, you have that passive partnership mindset.
Okay, okay.
I can add a bit as well. In two parts. One is semantics. Yeah, campaigns. Even how the industry has evolved to call this GCC and not a cost center or a captive center or a shared center. Anything that we used to call the same business line, right? So some part of it is semantics like that, but some part is also redefining value creation. Okay, and that is where I think even in my first commentary, I referred to a bits of technology, and I'll stick to technology pieces. Some of you who do more operations or productions, etc., may be different. I just don't have experience. But on the technology and the software side, I ask, and this comes up in some interviews, and if it doesn't come up, I actually ask a question to some of my senior hires on the technology side when I'm asking this. Would you feel more closer to a customer or revenue if you were doing the same job out of Brussels, where my customer or revenue center is? He's tempted to say yes to that, but in reality, no. Right? The lines of code that people write may look distant, doesn't matter where your revenue center is and if that is common with your location or not. It's the nature of the job. Okay? So I think the redefining of the value of lines of code or number of bugs that you track, number of tickets that you solve. Tickets probably, if we are talking of ServiceNow tickets versus Jira tickets, is different, right? So all of that redefinition has to be in your employee value proposition as a technology company. Okay? And that's how you can make sure that a software engineer, doesn't matter he's working out of the India Bangalore center, working out of Manila in Philippines, in Buenos Aires in Argentina, or in the office right next to where the customer is residing, feels the same value, which is not the same as the value proposition for a salesperson. He is the person who goes out and solves customers' problem by selling them a SIM card or a fiber connection. So the value proposition for each of these jobs are different, and that to be incorporated in your core EVP is important. That is why I define Proximus India as a technology company. Proximus Belgium is a telecom company. Telecom provides SIM card, fiber connection, TV connections. India does Java, Python, ServiceNow, Salesforce, all of that. That is the full value proposition for the India company. And my employees work towards that. If you are achieving that, you are meeting the goal at the end of the day.
To your point specifically, and I think it was interesting when you asked a similar question in the roundtable, and you specifically talked about build in India, build for the world, right? And I think a similar example I would like to share from my company. What we do is also a reflection of what Sandeep shared. Basically, we create in India models. We created the Power BI dashboarding of, we built an Obeya. It's a Japanese word called a war room, basically, and where we do performance management. And now today, that's the cockpit that we've built is envisioned by the CFO and the CEO. So we built in India, exactly to your point, and it's now globally being used, right? Similarly, we did a daily stand-up mechanism, 3 minutes every single day. We stand up with the full force. We have traffic lights, we have built it that tells us the priorities for the day. That is now being cascaded or circulated across the globe. Everybody wants to do stand-ups now. So this is the enterprise relevance that we bring. And when you bring these stand-ups, this is an opportunity for every single, maybe a hey 30 person, which is very low at his job, or her job, doing some basic data entry. But then he stands up in a global platform where he understands across functions what's happening, and then he sees his contribution in that traffic light. That's when your question that how do I contribute to the bigger picture, right? So that becomes alive, and that's very important. I can tell you in India, we have a mindset shell we need to break. We are a global player now. We need to come out of our shells. And when we do that, we really create enterprise relevance. And that's very important. And this is the time, guys. I want to tell you that this is our time and we need to make use of it. Thank you.
Can I do is there a question?
Just a quick question. So I've seen so many reports which says service providers like IT service providers and GCCs work hand in hand. There was a lot of confusions when the GCC explosion was happening. What will happen to the service providers? So in that point of view, how do you see that kind of association happening? Especially I'm talking in the light of consolidation of vendors and things like that going in the industry. How do you see that going ahead?
Totally comes down to value proposition. So I'll just do a small build toward the question the madam asked as well. I mean, cost arbitrage as the only reason to come to India, be it a service provider or a GCC, the days are numbered. Let's be very, very clear. AI is out to disrupt. It's the biggest opportunity for us, but it's also the biggest threat for India, right? So what value do we deliver? Which part of the equation we sit doesn't matter. We could be a service provider, we can be GCC. I mean, are you able to deliver at a better quality, better outcome, reliability, at a cost point as well? Even that's important as well. But that alone, saying I mean, if I be brutally honest, right? We look at Chinese products and say low quality, right? We're just the same with Indian tech as well, if we really aren't careful. So if we can actually solve that, the best party will get business. Be it a service provider, be it GCC. If GCC is not careful, service providers will outsource. There are lots of examples of that happening as well, and vice versa. Consolidation, all of that will play based on what you bring on the table.
My question was because boutique service firms and things like that get outplayed by the big fours and the larger, which is probably mostly seen as the first choice for the GCC. So that was the question around.
I'll answer that. Were you selling to the HQ before that?
Yeah.
So as a boutique service provider, you were selling to the brand somewhere else
Correct.
in Europe or US.
Yes.
When they came to GCC, you couldn't sell.
Exactly. I mean, where we have the global
That's
MSIs,
not
yeah.
by strategy at all. Let me tell you today how we entered our business case for the last 2-3 years, which was built up and then executed beginning of this year, was the fact that, we had every large service, small, large, everything, TCS, Infosys, Capgemini, Accenture, Wipro, everybody in there. We realized that a lot of parts of our core, what we consider as core now, was being outsourced. We wanted to insource it. So then we ran, where should we open our centers? Should it be Brussels itself? Should it be, Serbia? We already had a center in Serbia. India, Portugal, Poland, Romania, a bunch of things. Out of that, we said India. But even in India, we are hitchhiking on a selected partner. And that selected partner was one among those 5 names that I took on. Right? So if you were part of the earlier mix at the HQ, there should be no reason you are part of the mix at India as well. Yes, there will be consolidation, but consolidation, if you are selected, is a benefit, right? Yes, if you're not selected, it's on the losing side. But I don't think just because you're boutique or small, you will be eliminated. But the needs of the project that you are serving to the HQ at that point of time and the needs of GCC could be different. Needs of GCC, when you said consolidation itself increases the scope, right? The breadth of it. You might be a niche SAP, Salesforce, ServiceNow. There are lots of niche ones, right? Why would I give the contract of building all of the things to a boutique firm which is expertise in Salesforce, right? So that's how, I'm just reflecting upon how I would think about as a business decision maker, okay? But it's not to eliminate one. If I've chosen you at HQ, there's no reason me not to choose you again over here.
Thank you.
Also to add to that, it's very important, and I think we all have to be cognizant of one point, that to the point of Biju Raj, that the leadership is looking at business outcomes. And always remember that value is always beyond operations. Something is assigned to you, and if you only deliver that, one day you will be outdated. Yeah? So that's very key. And we have to keep that in our mind, that we are in the radar every single day. We are working with Amazon, yeah, and we have the largest market share of Amazon warehousing. But we are constantly working to ensure that we are not dependent on Amazon. And we have created a domain itself to ensure that our vision is not to be dependent on that one player that can take us away. Yeah, you need to always build your base very, very strong, and always try to work towards value is always beyond operations. And don't just do what they've asked you to do, but always re-innovate yourself so that you are relevant in the game, you are making sense to the shareholders. Yeah, think from that perspective.
Wonderful point. We have time for one last question. I also have a request. You will have to tell whom do you want the question to be answered from. Yeah, round robin abhi nahi chalega.
Yeah. So there is a general observation, and I'll have a very quick question. One thing that I realized very off late is, even though this GCC came here with the mindset of cost arbitrage, the mindset and the leadership of people is quite aligned with what India is historically been. So like today, GCC, you talk about vendor consolidation, GCC itself wants to give outsourcing services to other GCCs, by the way. So where is the question of vendor consolidation? But I think the question is on the mindset. When a startup approaches the GCC, hey, I have a beautiful product, is the GCC the gateway to the world? But the mindset of leadership is, oh, the product is good. Should we build or should we buy? And oftentimes we take the decision of build it because we have a lot of great engineers. So if anybody can comment on that, that would be great.
Any particular choice of shirt, blazer that you have? But you have to pick. As a startup, you have to decide that first.
Yeah, you can start.
Make versus buy is more than whether we have engineers or not. Totally comes down to what speed can I get it to market? Is it fast speed to action? Is it the expertise? So, I don't have a nuanced answer to actually say, but definitely, at least for our company, we're not going to say we're going to build something which is not core expertise, where we don't have people, just because we might have people on the bench. No. It definitely comes down to what's the business case of actually build or buy. Yes, whether startup actually comes in, because we work in a regulated industry, the bar will be a bit high to say, okay, what risk are we putting in if we were to put the solution into it? Does the tech stack align? There are other decisions come into play, but I don't see a differentiation between whether it's a startup or a service provider, or whether we should build. It comes down to what Sandeep was saying. Is it core? Is that your IP that you want to own? Do you want to risk actually giving it? And if so, is it making them to build, or is it actually getting the IP over? So it's a bit more nuanced than that simple. But I don't think we differentiate, saying just because it's a startup, stay away.
Is there any other question in the room? No. No, I'm just thinking in case it is, we want to give everybody a chance. Look, I think I was talking
the
about
coordinator has snatched the mic away, so there's no more questions.
So I was thinking about this make versus buy is also a reflection of the times and reflection of the model as well. I mean, if I look at the GCCs and GBAs, and that's a core discussion here, when you are as a startup pitching in, right? GCC itself has gone through tremendous amount of change in terms of the location strategy, operating model, where do we go, and so on. I'll just give an example about the duplicate payments. I don't know whether you were there and when I was talking about that, right? That we were having some problem with a particular way or a problem to solve, but that was not something that we were very good at. And we found someone who came and provided a solution to kind of solve the problems of duplicate payments. Had we really gone and developed that solution? Of course, yes. But it would have taken years. But that startup was unique. That startup had specialized in that function and had demonstrated value to other clients as well. It was quite easy for us to really go ahead and leverage that. And during the pilot and the POC, we got some positive results in the sandbox environment. So I think the make versus buy, it's not like a binary, but I think depends on what's the operating model. Is it something which is ancillary to the core or your core? Of course, will not allow anybody to really kind of do something that we think is our core business. For example, making payments to the vendor is my core, but to kind of avoid the duplicate payments is probably ancillary to the core. That's how I'll position it, so on and so forth for other words.
Amazing. Any other closing thoughts? As a moderator, you also have this villainous role of being a timekeeper as well. So it is 3 o'clock. The next set of speakers are already here. Any final thoughts, anyone?
Maybe
you want to tweet it?
Just to conclude it, because I still see a question mark in your mind. So yeah, just to close it, basically, we need to be honest with ourselves, right? Sometimes we can't do everything, right? And that's why we need to stick to the core, and that is important. And see, one day it will hit us back if we are going for anything and everything, right? Let us not do sun, moon, and stars and get the basics right. I think if we have that mindset of getting the basics right, keep it simple, yeah, and keep customer at the forefront. And when you keep customer have that customer obsession in the Amazon way of saying it, you will always be relevant to what assignments you're picking up and what are you getting, what are you signing in for, right? And sometimes you might sign in for, I just want to get in. And sometimes these questions come even to us as leaders. Hey, do you think you can do this? My CFO regularly asks me, if there is one guy who is leaving in Europe, she says, Sunil, can you pick this guy in Pune, yeah, in India? She has this question because she knows that we can do it. But I'm also very cognizant of what I can deliver today. And I'm very, very clear. Right now, we have recently acquired Siemens Logistics as a company, as a whole. Now, Siemens Logistics is part of Wonderland, of Toyota. Now, we have a GCC in Pune. And they're saying, let us take the entire finance, HR, IT, and everything, and let's do it in Pune. But right now, they are already having a contract with the GBS of Siemens. I'm saying, is that my important priority that will come to me anyways in maybe a matter of few months? But I have other priorities today, and I'm very cognizant to tell my CFO, let them continue another 6 months. Yeah, the roof is not going to come down. That's anyways ours. It's our entity. We have already acquired them. So we need to choose the right battles. We need to choose the right stuff that we want to do. So that's why we need to really be honest towards ourselves. What is my next assignment that I need to pick and what can help me scale? Yeah. So, and that will help even the leadership to build that credibility and trust in the leadership, or even the startup ecosystem in that way, if I would say. Understand the problem statement of the GCCs and of these enterprises. Understand the problem statement and then try to build something that really can help, enterprise to scale and stuff like that. Yeah, thanks.
Amazing, amazing. A lot of tidbits. I'm going to see this video again on YouTube, write an LLM and get some real punchlines and lessons learned from this. No feedback, right? Okay, now how many of you have finally understood GCC? Please raise your hand. What is a GCC? Right? For those who are still silent, looks like you are looking at your mobile a lot. Thank you so much. And speakers, amazing. Quite a lot of stories straight from the heart. Some of your stuff. And can I offer that any of you want to reach out? Can they write to you on LinkedIn? Yes, all of you? Yes. Sunil has something to offer.
One small point. The day you will know about GCC, we will change the game plan. Yeah, so it's a moving dot. We'll continue to change the game plan, and that's what is key. Also for startups and GCCs, let's keep the needle moving. Let's re-innovate, reinvent ourselves. That will make us relevant all the time. Yeah.
6G, 7G, 8G, here comes Modi ji. All right, thank you so much, speakers. Amazing conversation. Let's give them a huge round of applause.